Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hi students, welcome to the session. Now, once we have understood about the CNS, the PNS, the spinal cord, let's just talk about another important part of our whole, the way our nervous system functions, and that part is the sensory receptors or the sense organs. Obviously, without these sense organs, we will not be able to function. So, the sense organs are eyes, ears, nose, skin, right, and tongue. So, these are the 5 sense organs which helps us in perceiving anything around us, right. So, sense organs are the organs through which we sense or detect changes in the external environment. So, whatever is happening around our environment, we perceive them or we understand them with the help of these sense organs. Each sense organ has a special sensory cell which receive the stimuli and transmits the impulses produced through the concerned nerve to the brain or spinal cord, right. So, each of these sense organs, be it your eyes, right, be it your ears, right, all of these have specific or special sensory cells which are connected to a particular type of nerve, right, and this nerve conveys the information from these sensory cells to the brain or the spinal cord, right. So, they receive the stimuli and they transmit the impulse produced through the concerned nerve. Like for example, for the eye we have optical nerve, right, and this optical nerve conveys the information that is received by the eye to the brain or the spinal cord, right. Then you have, in humans, there are typically 5 sense receptors. We have eyes for seeing, ears for hearing, nose for smelling, tongue for taste, and skin for sensing touch, pain, heat, etc. So, this is something which we all know, the 5 sense organ and their functions. So, let's start with the very first sense organ and one of the most important sense organ, that is the eye, right. So, this is a diagram of how the eye looks, right. So, the eye is nearly spherical in shape, bulging a little in front and is able to rotate freely in the bony socket, right. So, this eye over here is present inside a bony socket, right, inside the skull. So, this is spherical in nature, somewhat spherical, and it is able to rotate. Why it is able to rotate? Because we are able to see, even if I am keeping my head still, I am able to see through the eyeballs that we call, and we are able, I can move my eyeballs, right, and I can perceive what is happening. So, free movement is there with the help of the structure which is there. It is a little bulging, as you all know, it is a little bit bulging outside, right. It is a hollow ball containing several structures inside. The wall of the eyeball is made up of 3 layers: sclera, choroid and retina, right. So, you can see that the whole eyeball has 3 important structures, sclera, retina, and you have the choroid, right. So, these are the 3 important structures which are present within this eyeball, right. And over here you can see that this is a hollow structure, it is filled with the fluid, right, and this helps in conducting the image, this helps us in seeing what is there around us, right. So, let's talk about all of these all of these structures one by one. The first one is the sclera, right. Now, sclera is the outermost tough white layer. So, this whitish layer which you are able to see, this eyeball looks like. So, the white layer which you are able to see is the sclera. It is in front, it is continued as the transparent cornea, right. So, let's go back and look at how the cornea looks like. So, this is the cornea over here, this is the outermost layer, this is the cornea, right, and it is continued, then it is further continued as sclera, but this part, the outer transparent layer, it is a protective covering, and this is what we call as the cornea, right. Then you have choroid, which is the middle layer. It is composed of the connective tissue having a dense network of blood vessels. Now, it is very important, understand that choroid again is a middle layer and it is very important. Like the pia mater in the brain, this is supplied with the rich supply of blood vessels. Obviously, cells of the eye also need nutrition, they also need oxygen and nutrients, they also need to remove all the waste that is being produced by the metabolism, right. So, obviously, it is important. So, it's to understand the middle layer, what is the structure of the middle layer? This choroid layer is black or brown in color, right. This is black or brown in color, and what it does is, why it has black or brown in color? Because this color prevents reflection, right. Now, if this color was not there, if the choroid was any other color than your black or brown, there would be reflection of image within the eyeball, and what will happen is that this will cause interruption with the image. Now, you all must have studied little bit about the lenses, what kind of different types of lenses like convex lens, concave lens, and how do they form image, right. So, obviously, there is a certain part of interference of light, or the whole process of image formation is because of the light, right. And if there is reflection because of any part of the part of the eye, obviously the image that will be formed will be disrupted. So, that's the reason why, although this layer is very important, but it is black and brown in color to remove any kind of reflection, any kind of possibility of reflection is removed completely because of the color of the choroid, right. Then the innermost part is the retina. Now, this is one of the most important part, and this is the part which is sensitive to the light. This is the innermost sensitive layer. Now, this is where the image formation takes place, right. Now, it contains two kinds of sensory cells. Now, we have already discussed that in these sense organs, whether it is eye, whether it is your tongue, whether it is your nose, all of these have sensory cells, right. So, similarly, the retina, it is a sensitive layer, that means it is sensitive to light. So, it contains two kinds of cells. First is the rods. These are sensitive to dim light, and other is the cones, which is sensitive to the bright light, right, bright light and colors. So, the colors which we are able to see, different colors you are able to see in this PPT, yellow, red, and all these colors can be seen by us with the help of the cones, right. So, and when we are able to see at night, when we are able to see in the dim light, that is because of the rods. So, remember students, there are two important sensory cells in the retina, rods and cones, which help in the formation of image, which help in the interpretation of image, right. Now, there is a yellow spot which is present. Yellow spot that is lying at the visual axis is the place of best vision in the normal eye, right. So, yellow spot is the place where the image is formed, and this is the place where best vision takes place. That means the image that is formed is accurate and we are able to see the image properly, right. So, this is the one which contains maximum number of sensory cells, especially cones, right. Now, like I said, if we go back, the whole retina, if you look at the image, this is the whole retina over here, right, and this retina has a yellow spot which is the place where maximum or the best image is formed, right, and this part is where maximum amount of cone is present. All of the other as compared to the other part of the retina, there are definitely rods and cones, but they are fewer in number. In yellow spot there are maximum number of cones, because obviously we do not live in a area which is, we do not live in a world which is black and white. We need to perceive colors, right. So, obviously maximum time we have bright lights, right, around us. So, cones have accumulated mostly in the yellow spots, so that they enable us to have a better vision, to have a complete vision, right. Then, blind spot. Blind spot is the point where the nerve fibers from all the sensitive cells of the retina converge to form the optic nerve, which connects the eye to the brain, right. Now, this is, if we look at the image, this part over here is the blind spot, right. this part is the blind spot. So the whole retina, all the nerve sensory cells of the retina, all the nerves which are associated with the retina, they come back and they bundle up here to form the optic nerve, right? This optic nerve is the one which takes the impulses from the eye to the brain. And why is it called as the blind spot? Because no image formation takes place in this, right? So again, remember, the blind spot is actually present in the retina only, but it is called as a blind spot because there is no image formation. So there are two spots in retina, one is the yellow spot, other is the blind spot. Yellow spot is for maximum or the better vision, and blind spot is the one which has no image formation whatsoever, right? So this is what we call as the blind spot, and that's why it is because there is no image perception, and that's the reason why we call it as a blind spot. So now let's move ahead and see that how the image formation takes place, or how do we see. Obviously, whenever we say we see anything, it is because of the light which is present around us. If there is no light, it's pitch dark, we won't be able to see anything. So first step is the transmission of light. So what happens is that reflected light rays what they do is they enter the eye, and through the vitreous humor, they enter the eye through the vitreous humor. Now vitreous humor is present in the eye and it allows the eye to remain moist, right? So the light is reflected and it enters the eye through the vitreous humor. Second thing is, once the light has entered, obviously whenever say for example, I'm looking at a pen, so why am I able to look, this pen is black in color? Because all the light is being absorbed here. Let's say if I'm looking at this red color on the PPT, right? So this PPT, this color is, I'm able to see it as red because the red light is being reflected back into my eye. So this light goes into my eye with the help through the vitreous humor. Once the eye has gone inside, why am I able to see the shape of D? Because the shape is being formed on the retina. So formation of image is the second step. How the formation of image takes place? Now cornea is the one which helps. The curvature which is there in the cornea, as we already saw in the image, let's go back and we see that the cornea has a certain curvature, right? It is bended like this. So what it does is that it allows the bending of the light, right? So curvature bends the rays. Cornea bends the rays to some extent, and then these rays go towards the lens, and then lens further bends the rays to form an image on retina, right? So the rays are coming, these are getting bent because of the cornea, then because of the lens they are getting further bent, and then they will form an image on the yellow spot, right? So this is how the image formation takes place. Then next you have nature of the image. Because the image is real, so the nature is inverted and real. Then production of nerve impulse and its transmission. Now understand, the image is being formed on the retina, and retina has the sensory cells, that is rods and cones. So what happens here is that the light energy of the image that is being formed on the retina, they produce a chemical change in these sensory cells, and these sensory cells in turn, this chemical change which is happening in the sensory cells in turn produce nerve impulse. This nerve impulse is then carried through various nerves and reaches the optic nerve, and from the optic nerve it reaches the brain, right? So the image, the light energy which is falling on the rods and cones stimulate the rod and cone, the rod and cone in turn produce nerve impulse, and this nerve impulse goes to the optic nerve, and from the optic nerve it goes to the brain. Then next you have the perception. Now what happens is that the brain, this optic nerves takes the image to the brain. Now remember, the image which is formed is inverted and real, but what brain does is that it is able to convert the image into the one which we should see, right? So perception is seen by the image. For example, let's say this is the flame, right? Let's say this is a candle, and what we are actually seeing, what image is being formed is this kind of image, right? So this is an inverted image, but what we are able to see is this. The reason is that when the image goes to the brain is able to perceive it correctly, right? It is able to correct the image, and this is what we see ultimately, right? So it is important to understand that brain plays a very important role here in the perception of whatever we are seeing. Otherwise our whole world would be upside down, right? You would be seeing people on their head, right? But because the brain is able to perceive the image properly, that's the reason why we see the world in a proper manner, right? So perception is very important. Then next you have accommodation. Now what do we understand by accommodation? This is what we call as focusing, right? Now whenever you are looking, let's say first of all I am looking down and then I am looking up. So why am I able to see clearly why am I able to see the PPT clearly? Because when I am looking down, the focusing of my, whatever I am seeing, the focus is being changed and all the focus is coming down towards the PPT. But when I see up, the focus of the eye changes. So the change in the focusing of the eye is what we call as accommodation, right? So this accommodation helps us in perceiving different things at different distances, right? So there is a particular distance up to which a person can see, and that is the reason why a person is able to see. Like for example, I am able to see a person standing, let's say 4 meters away from me. Why am I able to see? Because I am able to focus on that person. Then after looking at that, I come down and I am able to focus, I am able to see clearly at my PPT. The reason is that my image is being, my lens is able to accommodate, right? Then you have for distance vision, for near vision. Now the distance vision and near vision, the lens changes, right? Now we know that this is the kind of lens, this is a convex lens that we have in our eye. Now this convex lens is actually flexible, and depending on what we are seeing, this lens changes shape, right? For distance vision, the lens becomes flattened or it becomes thinner. Now this is the normal condition which the lens is kept at, because usually when we are saying close vision is 15 centimeter and we are looking down, this is the close vision. But when we are sitting like this, say for example I am sitting and I am talking to few people, obviously they are at a distance from me. So this is the rest position, that is flattened and thinner. Lens is the natural position of the lens, right? And that's why we are able to see things differently. And this is done by the ligaments, which are, this is, let's say, the lens, and this lens is connected by ligaments, right? And these ligaments are the ones which stretch to make the lens thinner, or which comes back to make the lens a little more rounded, right? So why we need the rounded? To make the vision of near clear. Like for example, I am looking down. So this muscles, the ciliary muscles, which are associated with the pulling of the ligaments, these are called as the ciliary muscles. What they do is, these are the ones which contract and they reduce the circumference of the eyeball right? And what it does is that this releases the tension on the ligament, causing the eyeball to become little more rounded, right? right? So this is for your near vision and this is for your distance vision, right? So this is how we see different things around us.